That's actually the first time we ever heard that, I think. We begin with former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. Governor Blagojevich, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Chris.
You wrote in your new book something I found fascinating. I worked as administrative assistant to the Speaker for all those years, you know, and I know a little bit about the House, as you do as a former member. You wrote in your book that Rahm Emanuel, the now top guy in the White House with the President, Chief of Staff to the President, told you that his lawyers thought there was a way where the governor, you, might be able to make an appointment to fill his seat. Explain.
Well, Rahm and I had a conversation shortly after the election where we talked about whether I had the power to appoint a congressman like I did a senator. I told him I didn't think I did, that I would talk to my lawyers. He felt that I did. He expressed an interest in having someone appointed by me, and then I was surprised he was even going to take the job as President's Chief of Staff, because I envisioned for Rahm one day becoming Speaker of the House. And so I wrote about that conversation in the book, and I wrote about the rest of the conversation which dealt with some of the decisions and options I had when it came to picking a United States Senator.
Well, this is what I find incredible, Governor. I find it incredible, and I mean that literally, that Rahm Emanuel, leader in the House, would be so wrong about the American Constitution in a conversation with you that he would think that he could find some legal means by which an appointment could be made to the House of Representatives when the Constitution is crystal clear, as I think you know, that everyone elected to the House must be elected. There's never, in the history of this country, since the Republic was formed, anyone ever appointed to the House. So why did you have a conversation about appointment to the House when you were a member of Congress, he was a member of Congress, and you both must have known there's no such thing as an appointment to the House? Look, what were you talking about? What kind of conversation was this?
This was a good conversation, an appropriate conversation, and nothing inappropriate about it. I think you're giving both Rahm and me too much credit. It's not like we know the Constitution backwards and forwards without talking to lawyers. I didn't think I had the power. He thought I might. He also thought there could be a way where we can find, through legal ways, a creative approach to the issue. It turned out that it wasn't there, and there was nothing at all inappropriate with that conversation. And then we continued the conversation about some of the options I had and some of my thoughts about who would be a good senator.
Okay, you're going to swear under oath. You're going to swear under oath, if this comes up when the U.S. Attorney goes after you, you're going to swear under oath that Rahm Emanuel will talk to you about having you find a place saver for him by appointment. You're going to swear that under oath, that he had that proposal to make to you.
This was a telephone conversation that he and I had on my home telephone. Neither one of us knew that those telephones were tapped or bugged, and I'm prevented because there's a court order that prevents me from telling you what's on those taped conversations. I wish I could, but no, that's a truthful story, and of course it is. Why would I make something
in your
like
book,
that
no,
up?
I'm just going by your book, Governor. You say in the book, quote, Rahm told me, this isn't about the tapes, Rahm told me that his lawyers thought there was a way where the governor might be able to make an appointment. I find it astounding that you gentlemen thought, in the history of this country, nobody's ever been appointed to the House, and you're talking about dealing on a House seat that the public has a right to elect, and you're talking about appointing it to. Now, just the last time I'm going to ask you this. Rahm Emanuel asked you to appoint somebody to his seat.
Rahm Emanuel and I talked about
somebody to your seat.
We talked about the possibility of whether or not I'd be prepared to help him with a recommendation that he had, and yes, that is in fact true. I did not have the power, and therefore we did not do it. And we also talked in detail about other potential candidates for the Senate seat. There was nothing inappropriate on my part nor on his part, and it was a perfectly appropriate discussion to explore options, and we talked to our lawyers, which is what you're supposed to do when you do things like this.
Okay, it makes Rahm Emanuel sound like a moron. I don't think he's a moron.
No, I think he's a very impressive guy, and that's.
Well, how could he think, as a leader of the House, he can make an appointment to this seat when he knows it's an elective seat?
You know, I'm sure Franklin Roosevelt didn't know, Chris, that he had the ability to be able to go around the Congress and provide lend-lease. I'm sure he had to probably have his lawyers help him work through something so he can actually do the right thing and protect Britain from the Nazis.
Okay, let me just read the Constitution, since you didn't read it when you were a congressman. When vacancies happen in the representation from any state, the executive authority therefore shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies. It's called an election. Let me ask you about this.
Well, my lawyer was right, and that's what I told him. I said I didn't think I had that power, and it turned out that my lawyer was right.
Okay. Let me ask you about what you think is in and out in terms of the law here, not just the Constitution, because it seems like there was a confusion about the Constitution here. What do you think is a fair deal? Forget the tapes for a minute. What's a fair deal that's to basically trade the president's Senate seat? I mean, can you legally trade it, do you think, when you were governor, for a job somewhere for you, out in the private sector? Do you think you could trade it for a cabinet post? What would be legal?
Well, that's a very good question. And when you have conversations along those lines, if you did, I mean, those are the sorts of things you want to make sure you talk to your lawyers about. I will say that I explored a variety of different options. You know, of course, I could have made myself a United States Senator. I saw you in L.A. at the Governor Schwarzenegger environmental green program that I was very interested in working on. I teased you about moving to Illinois and becoming a United States Senator.
I thought that was quite comical, but go ahead.
Yeah, and there was discussions on my conversations. You know, some of them were serious, some of them were not so serious, and a lot of them explored a bunch of different ideas, and I wanted to have an open mind about all the different options. I ended up with a decision, and I gave a direction to pick my political nemesis's daughter, because in exchange for that, we could pass a public works bill that would put 500,000 people to work, expand health care to 50,000 to 300,000 people who didn't have it, and I wanted a written guarantee to not raise taxes on people.
Okay, well, you say that's legal.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you, because when you said to me out there was, I said, who are you going to pick for that Senate seat? And you said, well, if you get some residents, then I'll make you the senator. Of course, that was a joke. But let me ask you about this. You were quoted, and you can't talk about the tapes, but when you're talking about these deals with Deputy there, you're talking about, you know, can't put it in writing. If you know it's legal to trade this Senate seat that Barack Obama gave up to become president, if you know it's legal, why would you tell somebody not to put it in writing?
I'm not sure that I know what you're referring to. Put what in writing?
Let's take a look at it now. Here's more from the criminal complaint on November 4, 2008. Deputy Governor A suggested putting together a list of things that Rod Blagojevich would accept in exchange for Barack Obama's Senate seat. Rod Blagojevich responded that that list, quote, can't be in writing. Now, why would you tell your deputy not to put a list in writing of possible deals you could make if you believed they were legal? In other words, if you could trade for a cabinet post, an ambassadorship, or a job at the SEIU.
No, well, as you know, it was the deputy governor who suggested that. My concern was I didn't want anything leaking to the press. I didn't want anybody to think who the potential candidates were that we were privately discussing, what other considerations might be involved. I was working, ultimately had decided to make a decision to pick a senator who would do the most good for the people of Illinois. I put aside personal aversion to the pick because I thought it could do the most good, 500,000 jobs, health care, no taxes. I gave that direction, Chris, the morning before I was arrested. I did it over the telephone, and it's a peculiar coincidence that the next morning I was taken away from my job and prevented from seeing that routine political deal come to fruition. Rahm Emanuel was the person who had talked to us about working through this. He's a guy who knows how to get things done. He's somebody I wanted to help us execute that routine political deal for the best interest of the people. And there is a real divide here. The prosecutor said crimes free before it happened. That's a mutilation of the truth. The truth is just the opposite. It was about jobs and health care and no taxes on people.
So basically, as your bottom line, it's okay.